For me, one of the most amazing things about Minnesota is how beautiful it is. You have these phenomenons like the Aurora Borealis, you have these beautiful lakes, and Minnesotans go out in all seasons, winter, summer, spring, and fall. And I really wanted to bring that feeling and spirit back into the airport. At the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, I've created a work that allows you to dance with an aurora above you, to spin light in lakes below you, and to interact with that beauty.
The overarching mission of the ArtsatmsP program is to transform space to place. To fulfill that mission, the airport decided to commission a work of art for the Terminal 1 Departures Hall. ArtsatmsP is a collaborative program between the Metropolitan Airports Commission and the Airport Foundation, MSP. There were 3 different panels of local dignitaries that were involved in selecting and approving, and they ultimately selected Jen because of her experience doing tech-based work. And we asked the community to provide input into the design process.
I asked participants in the public to describe some of their favorite moments within Minnesota. Water and lakes, and the sky was mentioned. Those were sort of key things that really showed up.
The airport worked very closely with Jen and her team as she was developing the concept. The airport actually created a giant ellipse in the floor between the departures level and the arrivals level. There were several tons of concrete and rebar that were removed. There was an expansion joint that they had to cut through. You have a suspended work that's actually built into the architecture of the space.
I have a great studio and team in Brooklyn, New York, and that's where I conceived of the entire project, also fabricated the entire technology system. I started drawing and sketching, and to be honest, I probably sketched over 100 different potential forms. I created the Aurora first, and then I had this piece that to me felt right. I realized that the whole shape, by kind of curving and spiraling through the space, really created all these dynamic, different points of view. At that point was, how are people going to interact with this piece above them? And I wanted to create this grounded piece below them, and we're going to actually have the lakes underneath it. But I really needed certain shapes that would allow me to create a glass form, so I was limited in terms of size and complexity. And I found some really great lakes that were all publicly accessible that could create this playful cluster. I had to test whether or not we needed 3 LEDs or 2 LEDs or 5 LEDs, what created the right twinkle. And that was one of, thousands of things that had to be figured out. How do we attach the glass? How do we keep everything transparent? We brought everything together and actually ran it, and there's usually failures then, so we have to test more, iterate more, build more. And so over the course of basically a year and a half, there was this very active process of building the entire technology system. So I had to work with Coalesce Design and Fabrication to weld the metal form of the Aurora structure as well as the metal form of the lakes. They built an entire mold to hold the over 20,000 aluminum rings and then actually welded the entire structure together. Well, this is quite a large piece, right? So when it all came together, then the next question was, what happens when we hang it up in the air? And what we found, which was really interesting when we raised it, is that it was lighter than we thought, but also that it has a lot of expansion and contraction in it. And so that test was really important because it allowed us to rethink how we were going to support the sculpture within the airport. The Colorado team brought the large Aurora form in on a flatbed truck. It had to come in 3 parts. And then there was this very exciting hoist day where the entire sculpture was lifted up and then had to be sort of configured and moved around and then welded into place within the floor opening. The metal form of the Aurora weighs about 400 pounds. Quite heavy, but also quite light for its size. It's about 30 feet tall. To install the LEDs, they need to be installed in these very methodical rows, and created a visualization tool that allowed us to see a striping pattern, and each sort of cluster of striping pattern, there's a red cluster and then a blue cluster and a red cluster and a blue cluster, would tell us sort of the state of our LED pathway. And this was what ended up being about a 3-week process. One of the unique things about this sculpture is you can see all of the components. There's a custom printed circuit board that's actually the shape of a bulb that fits within this custom chromed enclosure, and it allows us to drive power to that cluster of LEDs. There's about 2,000 glass bulbs as well. The glass bulbs are vintage old glass bulbs that add an organic, very warm twinkle to the highly technical LED. Once the Aurora was installed, we moved on to the lakes. We set up all of our electronics, and then we needed to move the glass. Each piece is about an inch thick. It's made up of multiple layers of structural glass. It has an internal dichroic film layer, and dichroic film is really interesting because it'll appear to shift in color depending on where you look at it.
As the Aurora has been installed, the excitement has been building and building.
And as you move into the space, you can play on the lakes and they'll light up underneath you, and then above you, you'll actually see yourself in the Aurora Borealis, and you can create an Aurora effect through your own movement. We have 2 cameras, and they're allowing us to track that movement in depth throughout the entire floor opening area, and then that is being sent back to a computer which looks at that and creates these dynamic effects within the Aurora.
The Aurora's 6,000 LEDs are programmed to change with the seasons. Blues and whites in winter, greens, pinks in spring, deeper greens during summertime, reds and oranges and yellows in the fall.
They also change based on weather, so you'll be able to see palettes that will be responsive if it's snowing outside, if it's raining, if there's thunder. So you have this really dynamic system of both video and human interaction and infinite colors that are being adapted and changed.
I think that what makes interactive artwork so exciting is that you can touch it, that you can play on it, that you can interact with it.
This piece brings you in and you become part of the natural experience.
My favorite part is the jumping. Yeah. Imagine jumping to the lake and then you jump in here.
I think that is really cool the way that technology is working.
I think it was a really cool piece, really well designed.
I like that you can walk on the lakes.
And my favorite part of the whole thing is that they light up like a rainbow.
Below is the ground. You have Worth Lake, Lake of the Isles, Bidet Makaska, Lake Harriet, Cedar Lake, Lake Nokomis, Lake Como, and Lake Phelan. Above is the sky.
The Aurora is really everything you could hope for in a work of public art, and I think that it's actually going to become a really lively and welcoming space for MSP's guests.
Yes, you're in an airport, you're moving through the airport quickly, but you can also stop and have a breath and have a moment and play for a little bit and have this sort of moment of joy.
I wish that everyone who passed by stop in Minnesota can come here and then just be a part of it.
It's fun.